Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Awesome, yes, give your hands over hand, awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. How many of you are from Atlanta? We got here on time, right? Traffic might be 15, might be 30 minutes, depending on what it is. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for staying for this session. I am Tiffany Bussey. I'm the Executive Director of the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center here at Morehouse College in Atlanta. And my work sits at the intersection of building wealth. The awesome work of helping to build communities and to share in that work, whether it is with our students or with businesses in the community. So it's my pleasure to moderate this panel today, Atlanta Builds. We've been excited about what's been happening in Atlanta and what it means to do this work. I am joined by two lovely leaders in really on the ground, doing the work, boots on the ground, as they said, digging in, and hopefully this conversation will help a little bit to understand what it takes to actually do the work and to build trust in doing this with the people that we do the work with. The conversation is especially timely because Atlanta, both in promise and the tension of progress, has been at the center of this work. We see bold experimentation happening both in income, capital access, and entrepreneurship, community investment. And while at the same time, many families still face barriers tied to trust, housing and wealth gaps, and economic mobility. So Atlanta is the tale of two cities, as we will say. So our discussion today will focus on what it takes to actually get this work done in Atlanta as we look at Atlanta as a national, probably example as we get into it. I'm going to start off the discussion, and as you, my two guests leads into it, please do help the audience understand your work as we're doing that. As we kick off, let's dig in. Atlanta, as I said, has been the national case study for innovation and economic opportunity. But from where you sit, and I'll start with you, Wande, what makes Atlanta such an important place to understand both the promise and the limits of innovation when it comes to financial health?
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning. So how many of you have ever had to make the choice between choosing between like food, rent, and medicine? Like raise them high.
Hey,
don't be ashamed.
Let's see it.
People get money or whatever and try to get all brand new. Okay, so a couple of people. So a lot of you have the power right now. We work in financial health and have power to make some really, really amazing things. Atlanta is one of the wealth capitals. I think they said like Raleigh. I see like online like or is it Raleigh or someplace in Charlotte? Thank you. See,
Charlotte.
Okay. I'm not trying to take anything from you. Okay, so Charlotte is one of the wealth capitals in the United States. So if we are saying that, and I think Atlanta also has, because it's a metropolitan area, there's a lot of innovation here in Atlanta. If Atlanta has the ability to also make innovation, we're not also asking the people that are suffering the most to be part of those decisions. So we're sitting at ecosystems, $1 million and $1 billion ecosystems, but we're not asking the people most affected to be part of some of those solutions. So those of you that raised your hands, how many of you have ever been part of those solutions? We haven't. But Atlanta has a remarkable opportunity to include those of us who are having to make those decisions, and we're not.
In your position, Hope?
Good to be with you all this morning. I'm Hope, founder and executive director at the Georgia Resilience and Opportunity Fund, or GROW Fund. And Atlanta both has so much promise and so many challenges. Mm-hmm. We've often been called the city where history meets hope. We're the cradle of the civil rights movement. We've had tremendous economic growth over the past 30, 40 years. We're often considered the city too busy to hate. Mm-hmm. We're often considered a place of Black prosperity. Yeah. And yet there is an underbelly to this side of Atlanta. We have some of the deepest and most entrenched inequality in the country. There are certain neighborhoods within the city where 1/3 of residents live below the poverty line. We know that that is largely along racial lines. The racial wealth gap nationally is about 1 to 7. In Atlanta, it is a staggering 1 to 46 between Black households and white households. Mm-hmm. That is as wide as it was nationally when the Emancipation Proclamation was issued in 1865. The scope, while there is so much promise, so much innovation, we are often usually the top 5 for job growth across the country. We attract amazing businesses here. At the same time, there is something we are fundamentally missing about moving the needle for those most in need. Mm-hmm. So there's something about addressing root causes, shared prosperity, being willing to not just be innovative in the private sector, but be innovative in the public sector and our policy choices that we need to explore that's gonna fully match the complexity and contradiction that exists in Atlanta that I think is a microcosm of what's happening across the South and country, and that is where within that complexity, within that nuance, and within everything that's right about Atlanta is, I think, where we can solve for the things that the challenges we have yet to conquer.
One of the other data point is also leading in the number of Black businesses, right? Which is where my work is centered. But as we think about all the statistics that you both shared, the session really today is about when innovation meets real lives. Mm. What does that phrase mean to you in your work that you're doing? When it meets real lives and the people that you're seeing in your community? What does that look like?
So I think innovation is, it sounds good in boardrooms. It sounds good in mission statements. Mission statements for me sound like word salad. I don't even know what else to say. But when it meets real lives, it means it has to come down to the people that it's most affected. So if we're talking about something innovative, it means getting out of your boardroom, it means coming out into the streets, it means shifting power. It sounds like a catchphrase, but shifting power is a real thing. Shifting power also means sharing power. It means how does it feel when you're taking whatever power you have and putting it with organizations that need it most. Solutions only work if it really helps the organizations that need it. So if somebody comes to me, an organization that, a financial health organization or a grant maker or a funder comes to me with a solution, but that solution means that you assume that I trust you, that I have the time to make that solution work, that I have the capacity, well, it doesn't mean anything. Let me try to give a tangible example. If you come to me with $1 million project, or let me just start smaller, a $500,000 project, do you actually have the time to assume that I need 6 months for this project to fail? Or are you expecting this to work immediately? Most people don't have that time to give me any kind of runway. And you're looking for a transformational whatever. There's nothing transformational that's gonna happen in 6 months. So are you ready for my report to say, I changed one life? No, you want me to come up with some kind of cockamamie doo-doo that says I changed 5,000 lives with your $500,000 project. It doesn't happen. But you people are, not you people, because that's what you people call us people. But y'all see the people on the federal level, on the national level, blowing up airplanes, jets, and whatever, and sending stuff overseas, and are okay with billions of dollars being wasted. But y'all want to stress me out over $500,000 about what I did with that, and aren't okay with me just changing one life. But what if that's the truth? But you don't want the truth. But that's my solution, is that over 1 year, I made an impact with one life. Follow my journey. That's my solution. Be prepared for me to make mistakes. Be prepared for that family to struggle. And most of all, movement If you read the book, I forgot his name, movement happens at the speed of trust. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Nothing happens in a microwave. In the West, we are so used to this microwave, Mickey D's, drive-through. We're gonna hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. But you can't do things like that. Trust is the basis of all foundation. So my solution, again, is slow down and don't assume that organizations, especially community-based organizations, with whatever solution you all have, is ready to be implemented on day one. Allow us to have that runway to put it into motion.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Can I follow up maybe a little bit and just dig in, and of course we'll give Hope a chance to answer that. I understand and I heard what doesn't work. What might work with you, and I understand, and we also heard give you time, is there another element? I think I heard perhaps the storytelling and the impact of that one life. Yeah. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so I love metrics. I think data is really important. And I know for us, our organization has had challenges in doing a good job telling our story. So there's this whole narrative like, what is capacity building? And I think we have to change the language instead of like capacity building because it's laced with deficit language. You assume that our capacity needs to be built. Our capacity needs to be strengthened. Like I know exactly what our organization needs. It just needs to be strengthened. We don't need more TA. I don't need to be taught how to do XYZ. We need funding. I don't want to go to another class. My staff doesn't need to go to more classes. It's funding to do, there are some TAs that we do need, I'll say that, but by and large, a lot of people have this like deficit model framing that wants to teach us how to do X, Y, Z, and we don't have time to be taught. Like our social media is very lacking. We need a social media marketer embedded into our organization to do that instead of me or somebody else that's bundled with 5,000 jobs to do all the things. So those are just some basic solutions.
Thank you. Hope, from where you sit, what does innovation meeting real lives looks like for you, particularly from the policy framework?
Yeah, so often we have innovation within the private sector, but we very rarely have innovation within the public sector. So we have these really promising ideas that could change people's lives that really only sit on paper. Maybe academics, researchers know about these promising kind of big bet solutions, but there's also often this trepidation or risk averseness that keeps us from trying them in the real world. So the Grow Fund, I'm the founder, we wanted to bring these kind of big bet solutions to life, ones that can have outsized impact on people's lives and make policy change, this like broad concept, tangible and real in people's lives. So to that end, we've started a couple programs. We run a guaranteed income program that serves women in Georgia. Our director is here, sitting front row. And then we have an accelerated baby bonds program called Freedom Futures that pairs income and capital together, serving 50 young people across Atlanta to help better understand how the role that income and assets play together to move someone's financial stability. And so what we really believe is that we don't lack good ideas. There are so many great ideas, many of which rooted in the history of Atlanta. Dr. King was an advocate of guaranteed income and other direct approaches to solve for economic insecurity. We don't lack good ideas. What we oftentimes lack is the courage to implement those ideas. And so, to make this tangible, we really believe, make it tangible in people's lives. people can see that, policy can work for them, programs can work for them, programs can directly meet their needs and are listening and are driven by community input. Our work started from a community task force and from listening to women in Dr. King's very own birth neighborhood, the Old Fourth Ward, one of the most unequal neighborhoods in the city today. And so really, I think the challenge is to make these things tangible in people's lives, build a sense of hope. Right now is a time where I think there's good reason to feel sort of hopeless, especially if you are facing deep economic insecurity and immobility. And so we really want to make these things tangible, make them real, make this concept of policy change not just something that lives in academia, but is changing people's lives. And we see that in our programs.
Well, as one representing academia, I will defend that position, but I do agree that the research that we do or is being done should always be accessible to the practitioners, right? And so I have this debate quite often with my colleagues in how do we get it into the hands of the practitioners make sure that we are applying it as soon as we're learning from it. So we do hear you guys loudly. One of the topics that Wande brought up was this whole idea of trust. What does trust look like in your world, and how do we scale it?
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
I think there are so many foundational practices to building trust, right? All trust is built by repeated interactions, following through on what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it. So from a very practical standpoint, there are all these authentic listening, all these practical practices that you can use to build trust. But I think there's a deeper underlayer to building trust in the case of trying to solve for economic insecurity. It's that so oftentimes our solutions are about managing economic insecurity or poverty rather than truly solving for it. And it creates a fundamental disconnect with the communities we seek to serve. And at some point, inclusivity and access alone are really insufficient solutions to the scope, to the scope and scale of the issues that communities are facing. I just shared that in some communities, the poverty rate is 1 out of 3 residents. I just shared that the racial wealth gap in Atlanta is 1 to 46. While access and inclusion can be great, maybe starting places or things that we can do in the short term that are really tangible, I think we also need to be authentic with communities about the true and genuine challenges that they are facing and be able to position those types of solutions in a context that matters to them, that acknowledges the systemic nature of the struggle that they're facing. And without doing that in an authentic way and then listening to communities, I think we'll continuously be in this loop of distrust.
So I have 2 things to say. Thank you, Hope, for saying that. So maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was just on the phone with one of our funding partners. And this funding partner knew some of our struggles that we were having. And they just did something really amazing. I needed a personal assistant. I just needed somebody just to help me, just support me with just day-to-day tasks. And this funding partner literally just let me borrow her assistant and help me with my task. That was dope. I cannot tell you how amazing it was. So it seems like to you all, it might not seem like a big deal, but number one, we didn't have the funding for it. Number 2, just things like helping me create Google Docs, get a press release, like just little things like that take time out of my day. And people always say, like, look, I'll show you how to do whatever. I'm not interested in learning how to, I just don't want to, don't show me how to make a Canva doc. I don't care. That sounds crazy, but I just don't want to know. It's going to take me too long. Strength Finder, know your strengths and be good at it and excel at it. I don't want to know. Somebody else can do that. And a younger generation is much better than that, than my brain trying to figure that out. So for me, that was very helpful, and that was trust, because my organization is like a child. It's like my 4th child or my 5th child, because my parents have another business. It's like a child that I had birthed. And so I trusted this funding partner to allow me to borrow her executive assistant, and it became mine. So it's almost like a shared resource of sorts. So that's one way that you all can help people that you work with, to just ask, is there something like that you can help people that you work with? That's one thing. Another thing is, as far as trust, when we're working with communities, we all say, oh, we're gonna go into the community, I'm gonna do da-da-da. I can't tell you how important it is, if you're going to make investments, like have conversations up front. The worst thing that we can do is go into communities, put a multi-million-dollar investment, and you're pulling out. Because I'm dealing with it right now. I've been with the federal government on a is it multi-million now? Yes, yes. I can actually say it's, yes, it is. A 3-year investment. And we're having to pull out with the passage of H.R. 1, with the big beautiful bill, July 1st. I'm actively having to fundraise to make sure that I am not, just because the feds are pulling out, that I don't pull out. It takes time to develop relationships with these communities that I've worked with. And so the worst thing that I can do is to say, just because the money's gone, I'm gone. Because these communities are so used to people leaving. Come in, pull out. Come in, pull out. Come in, and they're the ones that are the least able to develop trust and are so used to people screwing them over. Yeah. So just thinking, just making sure that we're aware of how we're treating people, and finding ways to deeply engage in making sure that we're stewarding those relationships well.
Right. At the center of all the relationships, the people.
Absolutely.
And after the program leaves, we're usually there in those communities, still serving the people.
Yeah.
And I think that as we do this work on the ground, we're often left for those answers. So I heard communication, I heard transparency,
yeah.
I heard the deep willingness to care. One of the things we talk about often in my team is just a simple word of love. We love what we do, we love the people, and to have them at the center of what we do when we think about trust.
Yes.
At the end of the day. So thank you both for sharing what that looks like in your work and what that might mean for scaling. Thank you. We're going to transition a bit to just talk about a major part of the conversation is not simply participating in the economy, but pathways to ownership. Very, very key. You talked about wealth building. What does that look like in terms of long-term wealth building? We know what the gap is, but what does this pathway to ownership looks like in both of your work that you're doing?
I'll be happy to talk about that.
Of course.
So my financial people, it was awesome to have a room full of individuals who are hopefully trying to find ways to work with communities. So a lot of times we talk about investments. So how do we get from investing in organizations, investing in communities, and then we talk about like access, like here I'm gonna help you access. But the key is really not access, it is pathways to owning. Because the other stuff is kind of sort of like, in my view, it's kind of sort of like performative. We can't do anything, we'll continue to have that gap. For an organization like mine, that has constantly been a challenge. We need a building. I was talking to Tiffany about this a moment ago. We need a building, we need land, we need space. We're gonna continue to be in this constant dreaded cycle of finding 1-year grants, 2-year grants, cycles, renewable, foundation, like it's going to be perpetual unless we can find a system that puts us on a pathway for ownership in the long run. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges, and it's a cycle unless we can find cryptocurrency to figure out.
Or AI.
I'm sorry?
Or AI, the last conversation that was on the stage, right?
Exactly, something like that.
Hope?
Yeah, we think ownership is critical for economic security and mobility. I mean, it's typically throughout the history of this country how families maintain and build their wealth, particularly home ownership is one pathway, but we see other forms of ownership also play a role. At our organization, we have a program, Freedom Futures, which I mentioned before, which provides, it's an accelerated baby bonds program. Baby bonds are a policy proposal around early wealth building accounts. But our accelerated program that enrolls young adults, we provide $40,000 to each individual in that program to spend on wealth building. This looks like starting a business, purchasing a home, a college degree, seeding a retirement account. All of these are forms of ownership in our economy that that serve to create long-term financial stability. We oftentimes think about wealth building and financial stability as like sequential, like people have to be stable before they can build wealth. And I think the two are, and I think data is increasingly supporting, the two are like cyclical. Like you need the steady income to be able to regularly afford your mortgage payment. You need the steady income to save. You can often, once you own a home or a business, you can leverage against that for further financial stability. And so these are actually mutually reinforcing concepts that should be linked together rather than seen as separate. So we're doing this in practice. That program has an external evaluation where we're trying to better understand what is the synergy between cash and capital, and presumably are they greater than the sum of their parts. But ownership is a key part of our economy and what it looks like to thrive. And we hear this from people every day. People don't just kind of want to be making it and surviving. They want to be in a position where they're thriving, and ownership is a key pathway to be able to do that.
Yes.
And we shouldn't make people wait for that, right? We shouldn't be like, you're not yet at this stage to be an owner. We should think about how we are enabling people to access ownership, even at small levels, relatively what we would consider early in their financial journey.
That's right.
What would you consider that we're still not addressing?
As a field?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's capital,
Yep.
there's home ownership that was named, there's entrepreneurship, which is, I think, went from not talking about it to now the magic bullet, so to speak, which is, there's some issues around that also, because not everyone is going to get there through entrepreneurship. Not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur. So I have my own thoughts about that. But what do you think is urgently needed in Atlanta right now, given all the other issues that we have already described?
Yeah, there are two things that stand out to me, and this is a room of brilliant people, so there may be folks who are on the forefront of these. But the two things that stand out to me is the rate of technology change in AI and the clear inequalities that it's going to exacerbate. And so how we're thinking about that, I think, is something like there's certainly attention given to when there are people who are on the forefront of this work, but it's maybe not sufficient, and I would love to see what that looks like in an Atlanta-based conversation. And then another one is, as we are growing as a city, how are we bringing along our most vulnerable residents? So much of what we love about Atlanta is being pushed out of Atlanta. And so we have to think about solutions at the outset, and then that has multi-decade implications. And so how are we thinking about these projects at the outset to ensure that what we love about Atlanta can stay in Atlanta?
Yeah, two things. Thank you for touching on the AI, Hope. So for those of us, I use AI, but how we can also be responsible and also understand that for those of us that don't use it a lot, understand that it takes us longer to process. So I have a love-hate relationship with it. But the way that AI is working right now, it's unfortunately forcing all of us to think that we have to keep up with AI and work harder, faster. And that's just not the way I work. As a 50-year-old woman, I still like to take my time and not use AI at the same time. I can't explain how I'm trying to articulate. I think AI stops our creativity flow, is what I'm trying to say. And there's only certain things that I use it for. I don't use it for Yeah, and I try to have a disclosure. You know, I tried to send an email to somebody yesterday, my operations person. I said, this was AI enhanced, so I have a disclosure, or try to have a disclosure when I'm using it, but it's not like my first thing, otherwise my creativity will go away. So it is taking me longer, and I'm finding myself, it's taking me longer to formulate stuff, and so it's almost like I'm getting outpriced, or not outpriced, but put out of the market because it's taking me like 2 days to come up with something when somebody else can just hurry up and use it. So just be patient with those of us that still value using our left lobe and frontal lobes of our brains.
We get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're right at time, but I want to really maybe give you one challenge that you perhaps could leave with the audience as we address this topic here. To be real, what does this look like in terms of innovation affecting real lives? One last takeaway?
2 quick things. Start somewhere with authentically engaging the communities who would benefit the most from your program, product, service. And those who are closest to the solution most often really do hold the keys to, those who are closest to the problem, are most often closest to the solution. And then the second is, this is a room of really big thinkers, but I want us to think even bigger. The scale of the challenges that we're up against are massive. And so I think so often, at least I'll speak for myself, it can feel like just kind of countering the problem that's right before us. But I wonder what can happen when we can together in community rooms like this, think really expansively about how our work can fundamentally change with people, their lives, and trajectories to have more opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was gonna say piggyback, but I don't eat pigs, so I was gonna say veggie back because of the line of work I'm in. So I'll veggie back off of you. But yeah, so I think about in terms of collectivity and collective impact, and really not duplicating and leveraging, and just bringing in as many people as we can to impact those who need the work, those who can benefit off of our work the most. So
Inclusive, right?
Inclusivity.
Include the people we're trying to help.
Absolutely,
basically.
please.
Awesome. Well, audience, thank you. Thank you. Please join me in thanking the panel.